the question that she asked
in a chunk of change.
Network nerd in the community. I'm Nick Korte. I'm a solution engineer for VMware. This is not a VMware presentation. I was an IT pro for 10 years, worked Helpdesk, did systems administration. Sorry about that. Just can't help it. But some lessons learned here from working the Helpdesk that might apply to you in your current role, might actually help you get your next one. So let's see. Let's see if I can figure out how to work the clicker. Got to turn it on.
That's your clicker, isn't it?
It is. You can see I'm well versed. So let's play Caption the Photo. User perception of the IT Helpdesk. How would you caption this photo? Anybody?
Speaks Russian.
Speaks Russian, okay.
Probably the best guy on the help desk.
Best guy? I thought that was a lady.
I think that's a girl from the 1960s from
that is a 12-year-old boy. I don't know.
A 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, that looks like an old operator from Mob.
girl or boy.
It's a girl.
Okay, let me make my request a little bit clearer. So let's caption it in terms of perception of the IT Helpdesk.
Oh, not in terms of the picture?
Like, is this a perception of the IT Helpdesk?
Oh, no.
No, she looks like she's about to fly an airplane.
No.
She's way too happy.
Too happy.
That's day one.
So you don't believe that operators are standing by? Can't believe it. Okay. Well, let's try another one. How about this one? How would you caption this photo? Another perception of the IT Helpdesk.
Where's the any key?
That's a user's computer.
That's
that
the user's
their password?
computer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
F and Max.
And they're
Well,
looking for the any key.
The help note right there is covering up their password. Okay, they wrote it down on the label that was on the computer. This is covering it up.
I mean, you don't mean
So they're clearly
password?
security minded.
It depends on the password policy.
Hey, the Russians aren't getting in though.
That's right.
It's a secure password.
Absolutely. So maybe the IT Helpdesk is a place to go for help. Would you agree with that?
Right. But you're trying to say that IT professionals are there.
I mean, they put the help in help desk?
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know. Maybe this was sitting on your desk when you walked into the office and somebody just put it there. That used to happen to me a lot. I would find things on my desk with a note. Hey, this stopped working.
Put this here.
Yeah. Sometimes with a name, sometimes not.
Yeah.
How about this one?
That's a help desk.
Seasoned veteran of help.
That's the help desk when they just found out what the user's actual problem was.
Yes.
This is the help desk when they found out the user's actual problem.
The power was out.
So maybe the help desk is a place that users go when they give up. Maybe?
Maybe.
How about this one? This looks kind of like an XKCD, but I don't think it is.
That's from F7012.
Okay. It's a free photo. How about someone to contact when I'm angry?
What did that ticket actually say?
What did that ticket actually say? So these are all meant to be like what the user thinks of the IT help desk, how they perceive what the help desk is. But let's talk about what the help desk actually is. Now, first of all, let me start this off with a disclaimer. No matter what you say, you're all users. Because you all have to use some sort of help desk with some other company. You've called the internet company when the circuit's down. You've called vendor XYZ for tech support. So you're nothing but a user. Hypocrites. All right.
I
So
need to use internal.
I do all my own
help desk.
stunts.
so let's see if you agree or disagree with the following statements. The IT help desk is a group of people who get no respect.
True.
Probably true. How about this one? A place the company sends technology problems.
True.
Probably true.
We call them users.
And other things. Maybe even like busted microwaves and stuff, right?
It plugs in.
I gotta ask the WD
Plugs in.
for
That's right. That's right.
Literally get tickets about
it was an actual.
How about this one? The help desk is a formalized system that captures problems, tracks them to resolutions based on SLAs.
Yeah, but they don't know that.
They don't know that.
That's true.
So you agree?
Yeah.
What is an SLA? Do you even have an SLA for your help desk?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You said it, not me.
They don't know what it
It's
is.
not enforced.
Yeah, some companies do, some don't. It depends. How about this one? An organization where the staff juggle multiple tickets at a time.
Very true.
But you can't multitask. You should only work one ticket at a time, but you probably have 15 in your queue already, right? How about this one? You have tiered technicians based on skill level. So you have the one-man shop who has to turn up the intellect knob so he can get smarter to work the more difficult ticket, right? You don't always have an escalation point internally. Sometimes you have to go to an MSP, sometimes you go to a community site. It just depends. How about this last one?
Oh, yeah.
A department of Google search experts.
Yes.
I think that that's how I would define it sometimes. At least that's how I feel. Okay, cool. So what do help desk people actually do? Maybe something like this. I love these photos, the perception photos, what people think we do, what I actually do. This guy, it looks like he's working on a few different things here. I don't know if that's a home office or if that's his office on the job. It's a little bit messy. I think I'd ask him to clean it up some, but perception. Sometimes they say perception is reality. All right. How about this? Reasons for user frustration. Somebody give me one reason that an end user would be frustrated.
Technology.
It don't work.
It doesn't work.
Their own stupidity.
Their own stupidity.
Communication gap.
Communication gap. Okay. Anybody else?
I haven't fixed it soon enough.
You haven't fixed it soon enough.
The internet's down.
The internet's down.
I let
Yes,
it
sir.
work in the first
Can't tell
place.
you the exact moment that you will be able to fix the problem.
Ah, we can't tell them the exact moment when we can fix it.
Yeah, I need an ETA.
Need an ETA.
Unreasonable expectations
Unreasonable expectations. Okay, let's see if I got close.
or unclear expectations.
How about this last one? They don't understand what it takes to fix the problem.
That is very true. It's just a simple request. You should be able to do it in 5
Yeah.
minutes.
Can't you just flip a switch?
Well, wouldn't you say that sometimes people get frustrated because whether or not we can solve the problem in the time they expected, whether it's big or small, it's just a really big hindrance to their daily work. You know what I mean? If all the bathrooms break at your house, that's going to be a problem. And it's going to be a big hindrance on your daily life. So think about that from the end user perspective. I'm sure you've been in a similar situation with some kind of service provider in that realm. So I'm playing on empathy here. Am I selling it? Selling it? So, why do you get frustrated with users as help desk employees? If you're someone who works the help desk, why would you get frustrated with a user? Stupidity.
The solution is.
Do what?
When they try to tell you what the solution
When
is.
they try to tell you what the solution is.
Getting answers to your questions that are not relevant to whatever was asked.
Getting answers to your questions that are not relevant to what was asked, okay?
Lying to cover up things they know they've broken but do not want to admit to.
Lying to cover up what they broke, but they don't want to admit. Was there one back here?
Giving their technical reasoning of what they know, what somebody else told them.
Giving their technical reasoning based on what someone else told them. Okay.
Communication is probably the biggest.
Communication. Let's see.
Looking for personal gain and not considering the needs of the business.
Oh, personal gain, not considering the needs of the business. That's a good one. I like that. I used to get frustrated when I needed to troubleshoot something for someone. They said it was a big problem, but they could never make time for me to do it.
That is
I
a huge
don't like
problem.
that.
I
Sometimes
like
actually,
that. I just note it and move on.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But you know what? Whether it's a big problem or a small problem, a lot of times the end user expects you to drop everything and fix their problem, especially if they walk into your office. If you're in a place where they can walk into your office, hey, this is a problem. Well, it is a problem, but do I need to fix it right now? Is it the most important thing I should be doing? We'll see.
It is to them.
It is to them. That's right. And you really only hear about problems.
Only if they aren't considering the business and are in for personal gain.
Yeah, if they're not considering the needs of the business and are only worried about personal gain,
Right.
it's the biggest issue
Right.
today.
In theory, in a good business, every user would care about the end results, and management would encourage through good policies to make the good of the whole to be in the interest of the individual. Many management don't do that. They encourage political infighting and say, like, well, you're competing against other departments, so they make you act against the good of the company. But good management and good employees together will want all the same things.
There you go. Good management and good employees want the same things. I agree with that. I think that, we're human. We're all kind of selfish. We live in our own shell and we see the world through our own eyes, so when we have a problem, it's a big deal to us, and we forget about the bigger picture. Okay. And you probably don't have enough people to handle all the entire volume of tickets that are coming in. I won't say that's the case across the board, but it seems to be a trend
Definitely a trend.
a lot of the time. Especially when we talk about, hey, I need you to cut 20% of your budget. Well, maybe that's a full-time employee and now I'm short-staffed. The average ticket. Okay. The average ticket comes in and you know everything that you need to know to fix the problem, right? Usually less information. I'll just put these up. So I probably don't fully understand the problem. I probably don't fully understand the scope of the problem. A lot of times a user will submit something. I don't know if it's happening for someone else or not. I just know what that user told me. I don't know necessarily what their expected priority level on this issue is. I don't know what their expected resolution date is. Usually ASAP works fine. But they're probably going to submit the ticket via the most convenient method for them. Maybe you have chat support. Maybe you allow email submission of tickets. Maybe it's a portal. Maybe they call you. Maybe they walk up to your desk. Depends on your policy and the way you want to do it. But again, the average ticket, don't know everything you need to know. Since it's after lunch and everybody's wide awake, I thought I would entertain you with some stories. These were real tickets that came in when I was working the help desk at a manufacturing company. And so I thought we could take these, analyze the situation, see what we can learn, okay? And you can tell me I'm wrong, but when you're working the help desk, you are selling. You are selling. You're selling the user on the answer. You're selling them on the fact that you can fix the problem. A lot of times you're selling them on a different solution than they expected. Here's one that no one's ever had, the slow computer. My computer's slow. Okay, cool. And that's all the ticket says. So you do some troubleshooting, right? You find out a few things. It's sluggish, but only for this one particular application. Or it seems like it is. It's not AV, but the bottleneck seems to be I/O when you're running this one particular application. And you actually find out that this PC, for whatever reason, when it was ordered, nobody swapped out and put in an SSD per your company standard. It came with a 5400 RPM drive, which is great. I hate those. We used to replace them with an SSD as a standard. So in this particular solution, or in this particular situation, based on the troubleshooting you've done, you feel like it's an I/O bottleneck. You've checked with other users. They're not having the problem, but they all have solid-state drives and things are working great. So your answer is, solid-state drive would probably help this user tremendously. Now, when the user says this is slow, let's make the assumption that they're saying when they use this application, it's 4 to 5 times slower than normal and taking them, 2 to 3 extra hours per day to do their job because of it. I'm just throwing some numbers out there. So, my recommendation, move to a solid-state drive. Now, again, the user didn't know what the answer would be. They just said, my computer is slow, I would like you to fix it, basically. I am selling them on the fact that I think the problem will be fixed with a solid-state drive. Okay? Now, we all know that in order for them to get a solid-state drive probably means that a purchase will need to be made. Right? Because I'm not handing those out for free. I'm not pulling it out of IT's budget. I'm going to make them pay for it just like all the other sessions we said. But in order for them to pay for it, I need to go and figure out who can approve that purchase. I need to know how much the item costs. Right? Who do you think can sell the purchase better? You or the person who needs the object?
Me.
You as the end user?
No.
Scott.
Me
Scott.
as-
Scott,
me as
we
the
always
IT
get Scott to
department.
make all of our.
Because I'm more trained than the end user to put it into business terms.
There you go. So it is most likely that you, the IT professional, can sell this to a manager better than the user can. Now you can do it a couple of different ways. You can try to give the user everything they need to go talk to their manager, or you can offer to go talk to their manager with them or, in their place to try and sell it. So if I'm selling this, I've sold the user on the solution. I've sold them on the fact that we got to buy something. Now, when I go and talk to the manager, what do I say? Look, employee over here, Susie, her computer is slow. She's told me about this. We did some research, and it's taking her 2 extra hours a day to do her job. And after the research we've done, she needs something faster. Well, doesn't she have a pretty new computer? Can we just get her a new one? Well, you know what? We have a couple options there. I can get her a new computer, no problem. Here's how much that's going to cost. Or I can just get her a faster hard drive. It's not my budget. You make the call. Here are the prices. Here's how long it's going to take me to get a new computer from my vendor, and she's still going to have that problem. I can get Amazon Prime and get myself a Samsung Pro SSD tomorrow and have her up in 2 hours. Which one's better for you? So again, you're not pushing this on the manager, you're just giving them the choice. That manager doesn't want their employee to be inefficient. So again, make the sale.
Then maybe they do.
Maybe they do. Yeah. I guess maybe they do want it to be
Oh,
inefficient.
yeah.
I guess that's a possibility.
Yeah, it is.
You hope it's not, but you would think they'd have money in the budget to fix an efficiency issue like that.
We've had customers literally say, we don't believe that people do work. We're not going to speed them up.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
this is a true story. There was a lady at the manufacturing company. She was the aunt of one of the owner's relatives.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and they gave her a nothing job, and they really didn't care if it took her all day or if it took her an hour, because they were just dusting her off once a week and giving her a paycheck.
Wow.
So yeah, it does happen.
They could definitely say no. That's a great point. Even you could make the best sales pitch and they could still say no. Believe me, I know all about that. And what happens when you fix it? Yay! Everybody's happy.
Child labor.
Child labor.
There's a lot of child labor in your presentation.
These were free pictures off Pixabay. Okay, I did not put them there.
Well, we're
Is
gonna
that your
put pictures of
Helpdesk
kids.
guy?
Yeah, it could be the Helpdesk guy. Okay, next story. We had a quality manager start at the manufacturing company. Cool dude. He had worked in manufacturing before, been a quality manager, had good success. One of the first things I remember him asking me for is access to our ERP database. Now, you can see how there might be some hesitation on anybody's part in this room on even thinking about that's a possibility. So your troubleshooting here is like, look, pal, you don't just get access to the database, okay? That's not how we do things. And once I cooled off and got past my issues, because I had some issues there, this guy was actually a software developer on the side. So he was writing quality analysis software and doing all this statistical analysis with Pareto charts and all those nice things with non-conformances and corrective actions, everything that the VP of production wants to see from this information. And we didn't really have that capability at the time. So obviously you need to ask some questions. Why exactly do you need access? You know, they taught us in sales training that if I ask you why something, it actually makes you more defensive than can you help me understand what this access is going to be used for. The question why sometimes makes people defensive. I'll let you take that with a grain of salt. But is it possible that this person needs data that's in a report I already have somewhere? Because that's where I'm going to go first before I give them access. I guarantee it. Okay? And what do they want to do with it? Where are they going to take it? How are they going to slice it and dice it? When you hear someone say they like to slice and dice data, it gets a little heartburn right here. Or at least it did for me. So, talk to the managers, talk to this guy's manager. In this particular case, we had to come up with a compromise. And sometimes that's the way it is. Obviously, you want to sell your security policy whenever possible, but if somebody really needs access to something, then give them exactly the access they need. So in this particular case, this person got a specific SQL login that had read-only access to the database. Maybe you think that's not bad. Well, if he starts writing really bad queries with really bad joins, then he's going to fill up my temp DB really fast and bomb my server.
Yeah.
So we trained him on writing good queries. We did not allow him to do updates. We made him use things like setting transaction isolation level equal to null. Or read uncommitted, sorry. So that he could read even while an update was happening on the back end, called dirty reads. But we gave him education on query writing, and he was supposed to ask us before he did anything crazy. And it worked out fine. I mean, it worked fine in this case. No real issues because we gave the access. But in this particular case, it was a small company. We had to give this guy the access. You know, maybe another compromise to negotiate here would have been make a copy of the database
Yeah, that's what I would have done.
and give him access there. And maybe we should have done it that way, but we didn't.
Read-only replica.
Read-only replica.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's great.
Which also functions as an extra backup.
Yeah, an extra backup. That's right. Another story. Stock options. This isn't going to be what you think. So we had a trend of company growth. They were starting to hire more and more people. Departments were expanding. And the onboarding time for a user, it was getting to be, a little more than we wanted, just because we didn't have enough computers to have readily available and just pump out with my image as soon as I find out about the hiring. Has anybody in here found out somebody was going to start the next day? Or maybe that morning?
Yesterday?
Yesterday,
Yeah.
last week.
I've been
Yeah.
here a month. Where's my computer?
Yeah,
I've been
exactly.
here a month. Where's my paycheck?
So sometimes you get short notice that somebody's coming on board. And that had happened to us before. In this particular case, we did not have the computer stock. So it was time to go talk money with the big boys. I walked in the CFO's office and, hey, look, you remember that experience you had on day one when you walked in here and your system was set up, your monitors were here, your phone extension was here, and I gave you the sheet of paper with instructions on how to log in and where to go to change all your passwords? Oh, yeah. Well, listen, I'm not going to be able to give that same experience to other employees, number one, because I'm not being told far enough in advance by HR, but I also don't have the machines in hand to be able to do this. So I have an idea. Oh, okay, what's your idea? Well, I want to keep at least one desktop and one laptop in stock, new in the box, that I can take out and image for when a new user starts. And then every time I deplete one of those, I'm going to buy one, just automatically, and you're going to approve it, basically. Now, maybe you ask for 2 of each, and let him pull you down to 1 and 1. 5, there you go, 20. In this particular company, we didn't have specific budgets in every department. We didn't have a specific refresh cycle. It was kind of a we buy as needed. So in this particular case, I won the negotiation by preying on his experience, that first day experience. So I had to sell him on the fact that this is the experience you want, and this is how to get it. And from then on, I did not have a problem with stock. Every time I depleted that extra, I would buy one, no matter what, and I would charge it to the right department. Changing the filter. This is not going to be about air conditioners or fish tanks, I promise. So I had a user that worked out in the manufacturing shop, because we had computers out there. We had kiosks for timekeeping and various things, but we also had computers for shop foremen who could look up parts and see where they were flowing through the shops. This particular gentleman put in a ticket because we didn't allow computers out in the shop to access the public internet. Nothing. You got nothing but intranet within the company. Well, this guy ran a milling machine, and he was in charge of stocking all these dies and tools that went in the milling machine to help make parts. And sometimes they'd need to buy different tools to make the parts. And so his argument was, hey, I really need access to these websites so that I can continue to buy parts, and it doesn't take us as long to get them. Okay, that seemed to make sense to me. Someone said in a previous presentation at our conference that a lot of times we're the people who say no. So I said no. But it wasn't me telling him no. Look, our policy says that we don't allow this access out in the shop. That came from management. You know, if you feel that there needs to be an exception to that rule, I'm happy to go talk to management with you, assuming I think your idea is a good idea. I'll go talk to them and we'll see if they can make an exception. Otherwise, the policy is what it is. So in this particular case, I went and talked to the guy's manager with him. Even after explaining the policy, I felt like it made sense because I could give him access to just this one website to look up all the tooling he needed. Anybody see a problem with that? One website? I'm not allowing him to look at bad stuff. I'm giving him access to a site on the web that lets him look up parts and prices. That's it. That'd be the only site he could access on the public internet. Okay. So we go talk to the manager. Had to sell it. I went with him, tried to sell it to the manager. Look, this guy needs to do this. It's going to boost his efficiency this much. Procurement's going to have exactly what they need by the time a PO request needs to be made. What do you think he said?
No.
He said no. VP of production was like, no. People in the shop don't need internet access. Okay, no skin off my nose, but it was great for me because I wasn't the person saying no. I pointed him to the policy first, and I even took his side in what seemed like a good idea, but we got shot down. I didn't have to be the bad guy, so no animosity toward me, which is pretty good. Because, you know, IT people, sometimes we get a bad rap. Upgrade of a lifetime. Imagine that you were in charge of upgrading the ERP system for a manufacturing company. It's a pain. It's tough. A lot of ins and outs. Now, let's just imagine that you had been testing the newest version with a bunch of new features. You had it in a test environment, but it was nowhere near ready to cut over. You and your boss had talked about the beta process, but we had not decided on a date. I get this email about 4 weeks before Thanksgiving. My boss says, we're upgrading over Thanksgiving, line in the sand. And that was it. So after he sends me that email, you can imagine I have some anxiety. Because in 4 weeks, we got to upgrade the whole company to a new version of the ERP system. It was going to be a new virtual machine build-out, a new application install on every machine because they moved to a nicer Windows client, and the interface was going to look way different than it did in the previous version. There was really no way to support both at the same time for all the users because we didn't want everybody in the old system. We wanted a hard cut over. Well, that afternoon, my boss and I wrote down on a whiteboard everything that would need to be touched in order to complete this upgrade. Several different systems, not just the application server, not just the database server. Okay? Well, I don't know about you, but in my ticketing system, when I managed it, a ticket could have been as simple as a password reset was needed. It could have been as big as an ERP system upgrade project and anything in between. So I tracked them all. You may do it differently, I'm not sure. But in this particular case, my boss went and talked to management, and he was able to convince them and get them to agree upon minimum functionality post-upgrade. As long as we can transact, accept checks, make payments, and still make parts in the shop, if some of the stuff is busted, we can be okay with that. Sometimes people want a perfect solution. In this case, we negotiated and sold the fact that the new features that we're going to get out of this new version is going to make our processes better. Management was able to say, okay, we'll let you have the minimum viable product as long as you can guarantee these 5 to 10 things work on day 0. And that's what we did. So I was in charge of conducting the beta process with a bunch of power users. Had to roll out the functionality, had to document and train them on what to do, test the right things. It was actually really cool. And exactly what Jared was saying earlier about the cost of the implementation, the training, all those things factored into it. But we had to communicate. We had to tell the users exactly what to do on cutover day. We did the entire upgrade over Thanksgiving holiday, and when users came in the next working day, everything was different. So we had to send out the instructions in advance so everyone on every shift could read it and know where it was and know where to go and what to do and who to call. But again, at a larger organization that may not have worked real well, but we did it because of communication and because of some negotiations as well and salesmanship. So what can we learn from this? I told you earlier that every one of you is really an end user too, and that every one of you is really a salesperson too, even if you don't want to say you are. I know that's a dirty word. But my advice when you're communicating, I think you should be a chameleon. And what I mean by that is a lot of times, as Jared said earlier, you're going to talk to people at different levels. But even within the same level, you have people with different communication styles. I used to have a boss who was a phone guy. He wanted to talk on the phone rather than email or text about it. That was his preference. There are other people who will come to your office because they want to talk to you in person. If you can learn what those communication styles are, and you'll probably pick up on them pretty quickly, you'll know what to stay away from. For example, if your boss doesn't like to be interrupted by you walking in, shoot him an email and say, hey, I need to talk to you about XYZ. When's the best time? I bet you'll get different results from the conversation. Empathize. You don't have to necessarily have been in the situation that the end user's in, especially if you think they did something dumb, right? Everybody does dumb things, even us. But you can at least acknowledge the fact, hey, you're in a bad situation, I get it, I'm going to try to help you. Let them know you're trying to help. And especially with big changes, how much do we over-communicate that they're happening? Probably a lot, right? Or not at all?
Not at all.
Shut off servers that belong to Department XYZ and see who screams, right?
I did that.
Scream
The other
test.
day.
You did? Yeah, it's a thing, for sure. But when you're talking about big system changes, definitely over-communicate. Number one, that can cover your backside in case anybody says, well, we didn't know about that. Well, you see those 4 emails you didn't read? We told you about it. And talk to other people. Now, in the sales part here, you're selling the result, the answer to the problem. And again, remember that the answer to the problem could be far different than what the person thought when they submitted the ticket. They just want an end result. That person with the slow computer, all they wanted was a faster computer to be able to do their job. That's it. They didn't necessarily care about how they got there. You had to sell them on the fact that you could get them there. And of course, the cost. Negotiation. I don't know how many of you have had to negotiate price and stuff with vendors. I know that's not a lot of fun, but sometimes you do have to negotiate with your manager on things, and you don't always get your dream data center or your dream solution, right? Maybe you build out top 3, settle for number 2 as good. But if you can make it good for everybody, remember, there's a business value to every outcome, but there's also a personal value to every outcome. What's the personal value to the person you're trying to sell something to? What will they get out of it specifically? Think about that. And don't negotiate with yourself. What I mean by that is if you send something in and someone doesn't say no, then it's not necessarily off the table. There's a really good book I listened to on Audible recently called Never Split the Difference by a guy named Chris Voss. He was an FBI negotiator. It's fantastic. If you have Audible, I would check it out. He gives a lot of great negotiating tips that the FBI came up with to work with terrorists that will apply amazingly in real life situations. I actually used some on my 9-year-old child. And it worked. But his deal in the book was empathize. Acknowledge that the other person is, coming from a particular standpoint. You may not necessarily understand it, but acknowledging it sometimes can diffuse the bomb, because we do have to work with angry people sometimes, right? So, relatable experience. I now work for VMware in a pre-sales capacity. And I consistently, throughout the interview process, got asked, do you have sales experience? My answer was yes. I have sold a project. I have sold an idea. I have sold an end user on a solution that I could deliver. No, maybe I didn't carry a quota, but I sold stuff. right? Does it seem as dirty as people think now? Maybe. We talked about the specialization of the systems engineer yesterday, right? So maybe you go on to be a systems engineer at a big cloud-first company. I don't know. Maybe you go on to be more of an architect role where you design the systems instead of maintain the systems. Maybe you go into some very specific specialty like a security specialist. But you know what? Maybe you could be an IT project manager. That seems to be a thing. Some of the customers that I've worked with. Somebody who's keeping everybody on task. They're not necessarily someone doing the work, although they could be, but they're managing the project for everybody. Maybe you really like writing documentations and training users. That seems like everybody here, because I can see everybody's face lit up. You want to train users, right?
Lit up with throw up.
Lit up with throw up. And of course, there's the pre-sales, post-sales. Maybe you want to go work in like professional services delivery for a vendor that you're really good at. Maybe you're really good at Microsoft stuff. Maybe Microsoft's the way to go and go work for a vendor. You don't necessarily have to. Maybe you work for an MSP like some of the gentlemen here, and you have a specialty there. And of course, there's the team lead management as an alternative. And a lot of people feel like that going to management is the only alternative when you're at a small business, small department. Sometimes the answer is go to a bigger company or go to an MSP or a vendor. So I hope this has been somewhat helpful to you. I hope it wasn't too much of an overlap of the other things we talked about. I hope it was a little bit different. Hope it stood out some, because I really wanted to beat everybody else. No, I'm just kidding. Just trying to see if you're still awake. But I do have a podcast that I do with a guy named John White on IT careers. This is total self-promotion, but we talk about ways that you could progress your career from where you are today. It doesn't mean that we're trying to promote people to become pre-sales people like we are. It just means there are a lot of options out there, and you really have to consider what they are and take some time to work on your career. So, any questions from anybody? Yes, sir.
Looking at things a little more holistically, like that one story where you actually went to bat for the user and got shut down.
Uh-huh.
How would you handle that situation if, like, when it comes to like how the policies get written at a company? I'm actually fairly lucky that when it comes to things like security and such, they defer back to me. So even if it's not an IT specific policy, if it's driven by security or some regulatory or compliance concern like that, it's there because I put it there.
Yeah. So the answer is yes, I've been in that exact situation. Now, I didn't specifically help write this policy. Your question was, what if you're someone who gave input on the policy or put the policy there, right? So in that particular case, if I had been someone who had written the policy and I was facing the end user, I'm not sure that I would have said I wrote the policy. I would have just said, hey, this is the policy, and again, if you want to make an exception, here's the process. Whether that was going to get done or not, I would at least let them hear them out, let them make the appeal, and then try and tell them why that's not a good idea. But I would also say it makes a lot of sense to make friends with the security team and HR and people like that, because then they will defer to you on creating and crafting those policies, because based on the situations that happen, you're probably going to get ideas for how you can make them better.
Hey, Nick.
Yes, sir.
Now, in the example where they did shoot you down,
Mm-hmm.
the reason you chose to go to the bat for the user is because you thought it would help the company.
Yeah.
So manager said no. Did you turn around and then go beyond manager, not for that specific instance, but to get policy changed? Did you even look at that or consider that?
So Jared's asking, did I, in the instance that I gave where I went to bat for the user about the internet policy, did I go to bat to maybe change the policy even though that manager said no? I would say that at the time I didn't think about that. I didn't think of trying to get an exception made there. I think that maybe if someone else had asked about it, I might have. Like, hey, this is the second time we've told somebody no about this particular thing. Maybe we should consider. I probably would have talked to my boss about it and then leverage his authority.
The correct chain. It's like,
yeah.
Hey, this is this could actually help the business. Let's
Mhm.
look at the policy itself.
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes the policy is the constraint. Absolutely. That's a great point. But I think at the time I just wasn't thinking that. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Anything you want to throw at me? Thanks.